Tilda! Ninahon. Eliadaninani. Honlefangurt. Menoninahon. Eliadaninani. Honlefangurt. Menoninahon. Eliadaninani. Honlefangurt. Menoninahon. Eliadaninani.
Mae Govannen, my Elven, Fae, and other kin family. I just wanted to go ahead and get started on a new series I've been telling you about. It's kind of a remake of an old one, but I would like to go into more depth and even more from an Elven point of view. And so today is the beginning. This is part one of Healing the Elven Way. Really, all healing is the Elven way when you come right down to it, when it's done from a natural, holistic protocol, but I'd like to focus more on things that we can do, how to recognize and where we go. So today we're going to go ahead and start part one, and in that we're going to show that to begin with, all healing must begin from the inside out and where that actually starts. I need to give the standard medical disclaimer, even though I am a doctor for over 20 years and also a nutritionist. By law, I cannot give direct, specific medical advice to a non-patient, so this video is for pure educational purposes. All right, now we can get down to it. All right, so this is basically the start of I'd like to think, a long run of videos on healing, from the spiritual all the way to the physical. So please, if you find that you like this video, let me know in the comments below, and what else you might like to see. Did you like it? Did you not? Would you like to see some different things in it? So please feel free to give your comments. I would love to see them. Well, as I said, this is the start of a long run of a healing series. We will cover topics for women, for men, for children, cancer, autoimmune, emergencies, psychological issues, anxiety, depression. We'll even cover some pretty heavy-duty topics such as suicide and so forth. We're going to be talking about a lot of these from an Elven point of view, healing. All right, and I've got over 20 years experience with this, doing this. Going to be talking about how you can recover post-surgery. But again, a little bit, I know for those of you who have been following me, you probably know some of this, but for those of you who are new, I'll go ahead and give a quick recap of my medical history. I am a doctor, a traditional naturopathic doctor. I've been in medical practice for over 20 years. My wife and I ran the largest naturopathic medical center in California, and I am also a nutritionist, a reflexologist, a Reiki master. There's a lot of things that I've done, and so I will be talking about those as well. So I have treated thousands of patients over the years, and a lot of this comes from my observations of what I have seen with the way human beings react when they're ill, or how uneducated we all can be in where illness actually comes from. And so today is part one, and we're going to talk about a little bit from a emotional or spiritual point of view, where does illness come from? And then in the next part, we will be talking about how we can start healing that inner child within you, which can then heal the outside as well. I know some of you are probably very well aware of what that means. All right, so I'm going to be covering a lot of the tools that we have available to us as Elven healers. All right, there's Reiki. I'll be talking about that. Massage, holistic, natural methods using herbs, for example. Water, diet, very important. Americans and Westerners in general have a horrible diet. So we're going to talk about that, though you can find some past episodes where I've talked about that in more detail. Sunshine, fresh air, exercise, yoga, reflexology, meditation, incredibly important from an Elven point of view. being outdoors, forest bathing. So we're going to talk about how the tools that we have are all around us to help us heal. The human body, the Elven, Fae, or otherkin body, was designed with this wonderful blueprint in it. And if you give the body what it needs, it can heal. A wonderful naturopathic doctor and master herbalist, Dr. Christopher. One of my favorite phrases that I've ever heard him say was, "There is no such thing as an incurable disease, only incurable people. It's up to us to step past our blinders, to look past the walls that society has built around us, to look past our karma and realize that we can overcome anything." In over 20 years of medical practice, I have seen hundreds of different diseases, and I've never seen them where they can't be cured when the patient was willing to be part of the healing. And that's important for us. People today have become so submissive to the medical industry and just, okay, just whatever you say, doc, give me a pill, I'll do it. That's not the way. That is a way to treat you symptomatically, but it's not a way to cure you. We talk about cures. We don't talk about remission. We don't talk about symptomatic relief. We talk about cures. We're going to talk a little bit about that here quickly today. All right, so all illness, if you learn nothing else from this one episode, please learn this. All illness starts from within, starts from the spiritual, and eventually will manifest in the physical. Always, always does. I've seen this a lot with cancer patients, except for children being the exception. As far as adults are concerned, in my experience, don't know about yours, but in mine, I have never seen a serious chronic patient such as cancer. I've never seen them not have some kind of emotional, physical, spiritual trauma in their past, something that they did not resolve. And it hurt them spiritually, and it eventually manifests physically. And I'm going to give a little bit of proof of how that can be actual medical proof that what you feel on a spiritual level will eventually show up on the physical if you don't meet it and don't cope with it and resolve it. All right. In today's world, people are so much out of balance with who they truly are. That Elven spirit that is inside of every one of us, however you may want to define the word Elven. We all have that divine, sacred, beautiful, rare spirit. That's what we are. And in today's world, there's so much anxiety and depression, schizophrenia, so many emotional issues going on because of a lack of connectivity with nature, with your fellow beings. So much damage was done to this world during the recent so-called pandemic because people were not able to associate with each other. Suicide rates within Western nations skyrocketed during that time because we are meant to be with each other. We are meant to touch each other and be around each other. And it was extremely detrimental what happened during those 2 years, and unfortunately is still proceeding to this day. So it's our lack of connectiveness with our fellow beings, and not just humans, but nature itself, with the world, with nature. And we were never meant to be in boxes, in sterilized boxes, and hardly ever feeling the sunshine on our faces. So to heal fully, we have to lay the groundwork first, spiritually, emotionally, mentally. And unfortunately, most doctors today treat you as an illness and not as an individual. You are classified as an illness, not as a person, not as a living being that just happens to have a particular issue or challenge that they're dealing with. So let's go ahead and get started with a little bit. So we always start from the inside out. There's a wonderful, I learned this during naturopathic medical school, and it really applies to elves as well, because we believe in the spiritual connectiveness with nature and life around us. And I learned about something called Dr. Herring's Law of Cure. Dr. Herring's Law of Cure. Please feel free to look it up. I'm going to read it to you here real quickly. And Dr. Herring's Law of Cure effectively has 3 parts to it. This is important for healing. Okay, part 1, we heal from the inside out. 2, that as you go through the illness and healing process, the symptoms appear basically from the top to the bottom. All right, and they kind of appear in a particular order. And as the healing process occurs, we literally see a reverse of those, and chronologically, of the symptoms eventually disappear. So the first law goes on. It states that the healing progresses from the deepest part of the body first. The mental and emotional levels, all right, and the vital organs all the way out to the external extremities, such as the skin. So it starts from the inside out. I've had so many patients go, well, my tongue's not clearing up. I'm treating candida. And why isn't my tongue clearing up yet? You know, the little white thrush that you get. And it's always from the inside out, and eventually it will show on the outside physical. The second law states that as healing progresses, symptoms appear and disappear in the reverse order. It's pretty neat to watch this. In the reverse order of their original chronological order of appearance. It was commonly observed that symptoms would reappear from past afflictions, and so what you had originally would go away, but as we go through the healing process, we'd eventually see them come back, meaning we were almost through. And very often it's a detox event, cleansing event. And then finally, the third law states that healing progresses from the upper to the lower parts of the body, where a person is considered to be on the mend if, say, the pains in the neck have diminished, even if someone now has pains in his fingers or his toe joints. The body's going to protect the brain, it's going to protect the core, so we usually see it progress downward from the top to bottom. All right, it's finally on this. Symptoms usually get worse before they get better. And so this is what I see with a lot of patients in the past I've seen. They get discouraged. They say, oh, I'm getting worse. And it's actually okay. This is part of the healing crisis, part of us getting through this. And so many will quit going, okay, I quit and I suddenly felt better. Temporarily, it might seem that way, but it's only because you stopped the healing crisis. And if you had just continued for a little longer, it could all have disappeared. And those who show the strength and the fortitude and the will to truly heal, they stick with it, and it eventually does go away. It is common for individual symptoms to become worse after a treatment than that they had before the treatment started. If a person is on the mend, they should generally feel stronger and better in spite of the aggravation. Even though they might feel the symptoms again, they're coping with them better. They're getting stronger going through them. All right, so that's very important. Okay, but again, I want to get back to this. That's the purpose of this episode. So please, if you, again, hear nothing else, listen to this. It's the emotional, it's the mental, the spiritual side that comes first. All right, and I'm going to give a little bit of proof on that in just a minute. Steve Prokopchak wrote an article one time, and it was very beautiful the way he wrote it. So please, I'm going to read this to you. When we suffer a deep physical wound, right, we are rushed off to the emergency room to have the wound receive necessary and immediate attention, a physical wound. It gets clean, anesthetized, and sewn up from the inside out so the healing process can begin. We are administered antibiotics to ward off infection and told to go home to rest and take our pain medication as prescribed. That's for deep physical wounds. When we receive an emotional wound, rarely do we treat it with the same attention. In this culture, it's a shame. You know, you're shamed. You're ashamed if you have emotional wounds. We tell ourselves that it's okay, it's not too deep, and in time it will go away. But what if it doesn't? All right. What do we do then? I have yet to see an ER for an emotional wound. What a neat concept. An ER for an emotional wound. Okay. But again, our body knows what to do to heal. Okay, so a little medical proof on that. How is it that what affects you on the spiritual, eventually, if not dealt with, can affect you on the physical? Well, I've mentioned it in previous videos before, and it's an actual medical science called PNI, psychoneural immunology. Absolutely fascinating. This is a medical science. It was originally discovered and researched into when we were noticing that, and this has been going on for thousands of years, we've noticed that happy patients heal faster than sad patients do, or negative patients. The happier you are, the less often you get sick, and when you do get sick, you tend to heal faster, whereas the negative or dark or hateful or angry or fearful patients tend to heal much slower and get sick more often. So the question was, why? What is the medical component? What is causing that? Well, we finally discovered it for real. Harvard and other universities got these grants to go out and study it. So they started with the premise that we have an immune system, and that immune system helps us from having colds, flus, viruses, cancers, autoimmune diseases. Okay. We also knew that there's something called neuropeptides that's created in our brain. We produce billions of neuropeptides every second. They're little messengers that go throughout the body, little protein markers, but they're little messengers that go throughout the body, alerting and causing changes. Right? So they knew that. So they researched a little bit farther, and they found out there are multiple kinds of neuropeptides. And that they then discovered that they are based on the emotional state that we had at the moment of their creation. Every time I move my eyes, every time I think a thought or have a feeling, I'm producing all these neuropeptides. Well, they found out that when you're having a happy thought, for all intents and purposes here, you have a happy thought, you produce positive or happy neuropeptides. When you have an angry or fearful or hurtful thought or dark thought, you actually produce a different kind of neuropeptides. So they then just went on researched a little more, and they found out that the neuropeptides, one way or another, affects the immune system, that the negative neuropeptides suppressed the immune system, whereas the positive ones stimulated the immune system. So they went on to finally discover that those who are predominantly, we all can have our happy, sad moments more or less, but those who are predominantly negative, fearful, angry, hurt, whatever, predominantly negative, they are much more open to disease and less likely to recover, certainly not as fast. And those who are predominantly happy people, joyful, loving, they produce the neuropeptides that stimulate the immune system and actually can help ward off illness, or certainly allow you to heal faster from it. Fascinating. So I tell my patients, especially my cancer patients, because as adults, when they come in, there is never not a history of some kind of trauma in the past. And so we talk about resolution of that along with the actual treating the physical issues that they're dealing with. We try to treat the spiritual, emotional, mental damage, the hurt child within them. Because if you don't treat that, it's a much, much, much longer road to healing, for a complete healing. Why does this also happen? Because of our adrenal glands. And we're going to talk more about this in episode 2, part 2. But just real quickly for you before we get off the movie here, the video. One of the main things that happens is, I know in Western culture, certainly in the United States and Japan, Canada, people in general are extremely stressed. They're so disconnected with who they truly are that they are not coping well with life. It's not that life is hard. It's how we treat it, how we react to it. It's the old cliche, how you treat me is your karma, how I react is mine. We have the choice to react positively, to not let them create negative karma for ourselves. And so there's a very, very, very common condition throughout Western civilization, Europe as Australia, and throughout Western civilization as well. It's called hypoadrenia, low adrenal function. The adrenals are exhausted from being stressed out. The fear and flight type action that I've talked about before. Fight or flight, where, that's you were originally there so you could run from saber-tooth tigers, but now people are reacting to their bosses and their spouses and the government and the media, right? But after a while, if that fight or flight doesn't go away because we don't learn to cope with it, the adrenals become exhausted. And then they stop putting out the hormones that we need to have. And so, for example, I just recently had a patient who said, well, my testosterone is really low. And sure enough, through the intake, through talking with him, we found out he's had long-term stress, which affects the adrenals, which affects his hormone levels. And so I said, this is very easy to treat. I said, I have some great holistic medications that'll bump that testosterone, can help it bump right back up, and all's well. But I said, if we don't treat the original stress triggers that are possibly still going on, or unresolved issues when you were a child, if you don't take care of those now, then when we do finish treatment, probably within a year or so, it'll be back. Because you didn't cope with the original issues, you didn't resolve them. And that's one of the greatest things that I see in Western civilization, that people are so disconnected, they've lost sight of that elven, gentle spirit within them. And they don't know how to cope. And so they just spiral farther and farther down. So I just wanted to talk real quickly about, we start from the inside out, from the spiritual out first. And next episode, I'm going to talk about ways to start healing, that we can heal that inner child and start healing from the inside out. And then in next episodes, we'll be talking more about actual physical issues. But we always have to start with the root cause, and that's in the spirit first. So we're going to be doing those here very soon, and I look forward to having more of these with you. Please feel free to leave a comment and let me know how you feel. Let me know if there's particular topics you would like to discuss. I think I've treated just about everything over 20 odd years of practice, and we will do it from an elven spiritual point of view. All right, for spiritual all the way to the physical. All right, well, I've enjoyed this very much, and I want to thank you for watching. And until we meet again, may you all be blessed by the elves. My name is Dr. Erendil Spindalelis, and I am the Elven Scholar. Namaste.